go on over to the SEC. A couple of top teams, top 5 teams. Let's start there. The reigning national champions, Georgia Bulldogs, 48, UT Martin, 7. Also, I want to lump in Alabama, the 4th-ranked team in the country, 56. They they scored 56 over Middle Tennessee State, who manages just 7. The kind of common thread between these two teams is they're breaking in a new starting quarterback, Carson Beck for Georgia, Jalen Milroe for Alabama. Both teams had very sluggish starts in the first half. Now, eventually went on to put away their respective teams. But is there any concern for you guys on offense for either the Georgia Bulldogs or the Alabama Crimson Tide? Alabama obviously has to get ready for Texas at home this next week. Garrett, I felt like Jalen Milroe kind of salvaged it. He only threw for 195 yards, but Alabama's not going to run the same offense that they did last year where they're going to spread it out and air it down the field. In fact, Jalen Milroe, within the scheme that he played in, I thought looked pretty good.
Yeah, and a lot better than we thought, right? We were all expecting this to look like what we saw last year. Apparently, he made a jump this year. Maybe Tommy Rees is the GOAT, and we just don't know it. But we'll see. We'll see how the rest of the season goes. Yeah, I don't think so either. Well, yeah, I just thought, look, when you're looking across the league, there were massive outputs against pretty much everybody. You also notice almost nobody was good on the opponent's side. So, it's early. It certainly looked like it worked. It's better than it not looking like it works, right? It's better than coming out there and, missing a bunch of passes and everything else. But I'm curious, there were a couple balls that he threw that ended up scoring where I wondered, is that a little overthrown or is that a little underthrown? And you're just getting away with it because you don't have as good a secondary play. Like there was one where the receiver had to kind of run in a few yards. And I think, okay, if you're playing, LSU, A&M, Arkansas later in the season, that ball's probably picked. I wonder if that can continue, but for now, he looks pretty good. I kind of expected Carson Beck to look good, but I think it was just kind of a how fast can he settle into that. But Milroe a lot better than I thought he was going to be.
Beck started slowly, and I think he picked it up as the game went on. He threw for almost 300 yards, didn't throw an interception, so a lot of green flags for me there. Vandergriff came in as well and played pretty well in his limited action. I think he only threw 3 passes, but I think for Carson Beck, it's going to depend on can he find some chemistry with some of the wide receiver options. We know that Brock Bowers is going to be there, but I want to see how quickly he develops chemistry with the wide receiver options. And, if they can develop a true alpha wide receiver, look out in this offense. Just a guy that can take over the game and take some defenders, take some attention off of Brock Bowers.
Guys, just a moment to celebrate the positivity that we witnessed in College Station. Texas A&M hangs 52 on the New Mexico Lobos, 52-10, the final score there. Connor Wegman led the country on Saturday in QBR. He threw for 5 touchdowns in just 3 quarters. And A&M's offense, I think, went a long way to silence the haters that said, oh, Jimbo and Bobby Petrino will never work together. Again, week 1, I hear that. But A&M had not done something like that in quite a long time. In fact, we were remarking as we were watching that Wegman made it look so effortless, so easy. Even when he was under pressure, his off-platform throws, his ability to keep his eyes downfield and find his receiver, and not just find a receiver, but drop it in a bucket at times. It's something that we haven't seen in over a decade in Aggie land. I think for me, the questions kind of shift more away from the offense. I'm curious to see how the running game goes, but they shift away from the offense and more towards the defensive side of the ball as they prepare to go to Miami.
Definitely. And I think, the secondary, we commented that it can only go down from being the number 1 pass ranked defense, but Josh DeBerry, I think, was a real bright spot. Had a sack out of the secondary, had an interception. Really nice game for him in his debut coming over from Boston College. And look, I think the linebacker play is a little concerning. The defensive line is, of course, going to be a bunch of monsters, but when the offense puts up 52, there's not a lot to complain about, right? First time since 2019, so many sighs of relief coming out of College Station. I think we could hear them all the way from Dallas as the first 5 drives were punched in for touchdowns in College Station. if they're doing that on offense, that makes the defense just be able to breathe a little bit easier, and it's going to make things a lot more fun to watch in College Station.
Garrett, it feels like for the first time in a long time as well, A&M has a really good wide receiver core to go to bat with. It's hard to just target one guy and feel like your secondary is secure.
Yeah, it's pretty stacked there. Noah Thomas had a breakout party. Lots of people are very excited about him and his development, what he could do. He had 3 touchdown catches. Didn't even lead the team in terms of receiving yardage. That was Evan Stewart. He caught a whole bunch of balls for a whole bunch of yards and a couple of touchdowns. And that's not to mention guys last year that had massive breakouts as well. Moose Muhammad had a big breakout last year. He had a touchdown, but only I think 12 yards receiving or something small like that. And Anais obviously wasn't a huge factor in terms of the passing game, but still had a couple of catches. End of the day, I think you have to look at this and say that this is a much better, much revamped offense. A lot of people, I know, we all know that a lot of people had tweets saved from this offseason ready to talk about how this offense is the same. I told you Petrino was ever something neck brace, right? Everything was going to be, the all time to hate on A&M and their offense again. And I get it because it was garbage last year. It was atrocious. It hasn't been that good for a couple of years, but it really looks like they were elite, maybe really, really good, not quite elite, but really good quarterback play, some really good, receiver talent, maybe just a couple things away from having a really good offense. I don't know if it's Petrino. I don't know if Wigman took a step. I don't know if it's just the fact that they know who their good receivers are and they're playing them now. Maybe it was just the fact that those 18-year-olds are 19 this year. I don't know what it is, but clearly something is working in Aggie land. Is it against New Mexico? Yeah. But there were some really good place balls. There was some really, really good deep touch from Wigman that I don't care who you're playing. I don't care if it's Miami next week. I don't care if it's Bama's corners in a month or so. Those passes get completed against really good corners. So excited to see what happens. And we'll keep rolling with that. Maybe that'll silence some haters.
Elsewhere around the league, Kentucky beats Ball State 44-14. Devin Leary, a little underwhelming to start. Only 241 yards, touchdown, and a pick, but Kentucky eventually pulls away. Missouri beats San Diego State. I knew I was going to do that. South Dakota State, 35-10. Number 12, Tennessee, boat races Virginia 49-13. That was the first game that Virginia had played since the tragic shooting last year that canceled the rest of their season. Number 22, Ole Miss beats Mercer 73-7. Auburn wins Hugh Freeze's debut 59-14 over UMass. Mississippi State drubs Southeastern Louisiana 48-7, and Vandy takes down Alabama A&M 47-14.
Gracious him! How about that?